without any further ado, I wanted to let you know we are talking with two-time Emmy Award winner and Golden Globe winner Sally Struthers. Sally has had a remarkable career that's taken her all over the world, from major films to Broadway to hit television series. Sally has done it all, girl, but she may be best known for her role as Gloria in the hit series All in the Family. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you, Cindy Connors. I am thrilled to be on your hit show.
Yes.
Girls' Night In is so appropriate.
Isn't it? Oh my God, this day of COVID, this is what we need, right?
Yeah, I've been shut in for 15 months between some physical ailments and then the pandemic hitting. So it
Too
is
much.
Girls' Night In here for about 450 days for me.
Too much.
Too
Well,
much.
it's the 50th anniversary of All in the Family, which frankly I find hard to believe. It was one of my favorite shows. And there might be people on here that aren't familiar with the show and how iconic it is. So can you just give us a description of it?
Oh my goodness. Well, if there are people enjoying your show right now, Cindy, who don't know All in the Family, I can guarantee them that their parents and their grandparents know it or knew it very well. It changed the face of television. Before All in the Family, which I'll tell you about in a second, plot-wise, but married couples didn't sleep in the same bed. They slept in twin beds. Everybody came to the dinner table dressed as if they were going to Easter Sunday church. Everybody had perfect table manners. You never heard a toilet flush.
Yeah.
You never heard anything that was a racial epithet in any way. And then along came All in the Family. It was adapted from a British television series that was very popular in the 60s in England called Till Death Do Us Part. And it was Americanized, and it's about a blue-collar worker, in this case, a man named Archie Bunker, and his adorable wife, Edith Bunker, who has the heart of an angel and is not dim-witted, but is very simple in her heart and in her thinking, and puts up with Archie and all of his peculiarities. They only have one child, Gloria, who I played. I was the third person to play Gloria. I'll tell you about that in a second. And along with them in their house lives Gloria's husband, who is Polish by descent, Mike Stivic. And Gloria's father, Archie, often calls him, "You dumb Polak, you." So it is whatever happens in sitcoms that came before, but this time it's real. We argued about politics. We argued about women's liberation. We argued about the next door neighbors who were Black. We argued about homosexuality. We did some very real shows where Edith was almost raped, where Gloria lost her baby when she was pregnant the first time. By the time you knew the characters really well and loved them, we were able to do some really tender pieces, but most of it was written by the most brilliant writers anybody could ever hope to work with. And they came from the earlier era of television. We called them our Habim scribes, because they were older, usually Jewish men who had written for Carl Reiner and Sid Caesar and Imogene Coca. And they knew they knew what was funny. They were like, they were seasoned veterans, and they came to work on our show. And then we were so successful that we started to spin shows off of our show. And off of our show came The Jeffersons, came Maude. Those were characters that started on All in the Family. And Norman Lear, our producer, would take our best writers and move them onto the new show to get it going, and give us a whole new set of writers who didn't know how to write for us yet. And that made the actor Carol O'Connor very angry, because we kept getting new writers who didn't know how to write for the characters.
Yeah, but there were a couple things that really amazed me when I did some research, and that is that it was turned down by ABC twice because it was too controversial.
Yes.
And
well,
the other
thing, it was turned down after they made a pilot each time.
Right.
It was chosen to try it out, and they
Mm-hmm.
shot a pilot, and then they looked at it and were afraid to put it on the air, so they put it on a shelf to gather dust.
Mm-hmm.
And the next year they dusted it off and looked at it again and decided the only thing they needed to change was the kids. So they
Mm-hmm.
hired a second Gloria and a second Mike, and they shot it again. And a little bit of a rewrite of a script, I'm told. I wasn't around for any of that. And again, they were frightened to put it on the air. And then it was taken to the brand new president of CBS, a man named Robert Woods, who said, I will put it on the air, but you need new kids. So Rob Reiner, Carl Reiner's son, and I were the third Mike and Gloria.
And tell us how you got cast. What a twist of fate, huh?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question because it has, in my opinion, an interesting answer. The first time I went to read for the part, as anybody would have gone to read for the part, there was no high expectation of it being anything spectacular. It was just a job opportunity to read for an unknown man in his office in the part of Los Angeles called Century City. That day I had laryngitis, and when I went in to read for him, they handed me 4 or 5 pages of dialogue, and it was all yelling at my father and yelling at my husband, and I had no voice. And that's probably why Norman Lear remembered me, because I was yelling like this. And a few weeks later, I was told that I was in the final group of 4 young women that had been chosen to go in for the final audition, which this time took place at CBS television in the center of Los Angeles by the famous farmers market. And I got to the outer office, and there was Penny Marshall.
Oh, God.
who was living with Rob Reiner.
Right. And you thought, oh, that's it, right?
And the final audition was to go into an office with all the CBS executives, who we call the suits, men in suits, and Norman Lear and his partner, Bud Yorkin. And they would throw ideas at Rob Reiner and whatever young lady was in the room with him at the moment. And we would have to do improvisations because they wanted to see our chemistry. And when I knew that that was the final audition, and I saw Penny Marshall, and I knew Rob Reiner and Penny Marshall were already living together, I sat in that outer office and I said, well, that's the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's obviously going to do better with her because they have each other's rhythm. They have each other's sense of humor. So there's no point in getting nervous because she's got it. So, and besides, she looked very much like Jean Stapleton. And so I said, well, that's the way that's going to go. And I went in and did what they asked. And then I got the phone call that I got the part, and I was shocked. So when we had made several of them, and one of them finally went on the air in January of 1971, and we were on the set on a rehearsal day. The next day, the audiences were coming. We always shot it for 2 different audiences on a Friday. So on Thursday, we were rehearsing. We were on a break, and Norman Lear was standing over by the audience section, and on a 10-minute break, I wandered over to him feeling my oats because the show was quickly rising to #1 on television. And I said, Norman? And he said, yes, Sally. And I said, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. And I said, you know, back when I had to audition for all of you in that CBS office, was I really the funniest one? Is that why you chose me? And he says, well, no, the writers and I thought about if the show had any longevity, what would work best if mother and daughter were very much a team and lookalikes, or if father and daughter was the main relationship and she was just her father's little girl. And we decided to go with that. And just like Carol O'Connor, you have blue eyes and a fat face.
Oh, God. Nice.
I said, thank you.
Yeah, right.
And I walked away. And I learned that day, 50 years ago, that you don't go on a fishing expedition if you're going to gripe about what you catch.
Yeah.
So I've never asked for a compliment again, ever.
But you developed some really amazing relationships on that show, especially with Carol O'Connor, right?
Oh, my God. My own father, Dr. Robert Alden Struthers in Portland, Oregon, passed away 2 years before I landed the role in All in the Family. And I was 20 years old when he died, and I just felt like I wasn't anchored parent-wise. It's not anything I walked around and shared with anybody, but I felt cheated that my dad didn't get to see me have the success, since in the beginning I was going to become a doctor like he was. And Carol O'Connor quickly became my father off screen as well as on. He and his wife Nancy, they took me everywhere with them. If they were invited to a party, they took me. If I needed to go to some event, we went together. They introduced me to my husband. Then Sammy Davis Jr. guested on the show years later.
Yes.
And he became my second father.
What was that connection? What did you feel?
It was just amazing. We had this great week with him, with rehearsal and with the 2 tapings of the show. And my relationship with Sammy and his wife, Altavis, didn't stop after that. I was constantly at their home watching movies, going to parties.
What was it? Why did you click? What was it?
I think that he and I were the same size. And I had named my daughter Sam. And I think that he just, he didn't have a daughter, and it just happened. And then one day they had me over to their house, and they presented me with this beautifully framed adoption certificate that I was their child. And then one time I had a picture of them in my wallet. That was back in the day when you didn't have cell phones, so you actually carried pictures in your wallet. And there was a horrible man sitting next to me on the airplane, and he was saying things to somebody across the aisle in an attempt to converse with me that were off color and awful. And I just knew who he was, that he was not a lovable Archie Bunker. He was just a bigot.
Yeah.
And so I just pulled my wallet out of my purse at some point when I just couldn't take it, that he wouldn't stop talking to me. And I said, "Can I show you a picture of my parents?" And I showed him out Sammy Davis and his African-American wife, and he stopped talking to me. Perfect.
I love it. That is so great. Now, do you think that show could be produced today?
I think it could be produced. It would no longer be groundbreaking.
I'm not sure people would accept Archie, though. I don't know.
Well, he certainly wasn't politically correct, but that was the point of having it on the air, was to try to teach people about bigotry, and also teach people that someone can spout slurs and really awful epithets, but still have a good heart. But they were taught to dislike or hate or disrespect people that were different than themselves while sitting on their father's knee. You're taught those things.
Yeah,
you grew up in a household where your parents and your grandparents say awful things, so you learn this awful way of thinking. You can be untaught as well, but so I don't think that particular spectacular part of it wouldn't be part of it anymore. So it would just be about a family. I also think that the casting was absolutely serendipitous. I think the 4 of us and the 4 of our different backgrounds, educationally, psychologically, religiously, were so different that there was something we all brought to the mix. And I think that was magic. And I don't know if you tried to write a 2021 version of All in the Family, if you would ever get that magic in casting it in. I don't know. It was so many things that had to come together to make it so special.
It is amazing how that happens, isn't it? That energy exchange, that chemistry. It's like, it is magic. I think it is.
Well, you're a television producer. You've even won an Emmy. You know that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Gilmore Girls. That is 20 years too. That's amazing. And
Yeah,
that was a hugely popular show.
yeah, this is the
And you
20th
played
anniversary
Babette.
for me of Gilmore Girls and the 50th anniversary of All in the Family. It's just crazy. Gilmore
Yeah.
Girls was so much fun. 7 years of fun. And then we all thought it was over and we all went our separate ways. And I really, other than the gentleman that played Ted Rooney, who played my husband on that show, I really, and Liz Torres, who played Miss Patty, the town dance teacher.
Mm-hmm.
She had been my friend since the All in the Family days because she played the maid on All in the Family for a year. So Liz and I have been friends for 50 years, and then we're both on Gilmore Girls, which was fantastic. But people have said to me early on, I was only in my 20s, they would say, they meant well, but they would say things where they were sticking their foot in their mouth. They'd say, oh, it's such a shame you've had this huge success so early, because it just only really happens once in a lifetime. So the rest of your career is going to be downhill.
Ah.
People say things, right? And then I got Gilmore Girls, and it was like getting the brass ring again on the carousel. I mean, the writing was spectacular. Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino, her husband, extraordinary writers. Again, a brilliant cast. All in the Family was 8 years for me. Gilmore Girls was 7 years for me. And then after a couple of years, like 10 years of not doing it, or 8 years, Netflix picks it up and wants 4 90-minute movies called A Year in the Life. So we did 4 movies.
Yeah,
and it was like amazing. We were all brought back to summer camp again. We all got to play together again. It was fabulous.
But what a roller coaster Hollywood must be. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, to go from 30 million people a week watching you and then auditioning and that show wrapping up. I mean, what was that period like?
Well, here's a precursor to all of that, which will tell you really what it's like in one tiny story. I was a regular on the Tim Conway Comedy Hour in 1970. I opened the show as the Tim Conway dancer, and it was hilarious because they gave me really bad dances to do and really ridiculous costumes. And as opposed to the June Taylor dancers, which were on the Jackie Gleason show, I was the only dancer, which looks particularly awful when you're lying on the floor making patterns all by yourself. But that was the point.
Right.
And working with Tim Conway, who wouldn't be in some corner of Nirvana. And then the Suits in New York called the producers and said, you got to let that girl go that's the opening dancer. She makes the show look cheap.
And then you get All in the Family.
Yeah, the producer says, no, that's the point. You see, we're making it look like it has no budget, which is why his first show on the air in September was his Christmas show, because he figured he'd be canceled, so he did want to do a Christmas show. And then there's only one musician. He has no instrument because we can't afford it, so he hums the opening theme song. It's a comedy theme. And the Suits says, no, get rid of her.
Don't get it.
But if I hadn't been gotten rid of, I wouldn't have been available to read for All in the Family.
Exactly. I mean, how crazy is life?
But it happens in life and it happens in show business. It's just hold on.
When I'm reading about you, I'm also amazed at how young you were. I mean, you were in The Getaway. You were in 5 Easy Pieces. I mean, what were you, 20 years old, and you're doing these major films with huge stars?
Yeah.
I mean,
what happens is you get a TV series, and the TV series is really popular, and then you become what pigeonholes you as a television actress. And if you're a television actor, you couldn't possibly be a film actor. So even though your first 2 big jobs were in major motion pictures, now nobody will let you in a motion picture. Like, what?
It's crazy.
What?
And also, you're a fabulous stage actress.
Luckily, I went to stage acting school. I went to college to study just that. And I've been doing that my whole life, and it has held me in good stead. You know, the theater is always there. If there's not a television series, if there's not a film to do, if there's not a child to raise, there's always a play or a musical to go do somewhere. And when you have a name and a face that people recognize, theater producers know that it sells tickets. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have to audition for theater. I get asked to do parts.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
It's spectacular. Every night I say to God, how did this happen that I'm so blessed?
But let's back up a little bit. Is this something that was in your blood, when you were a child in Portland, Oregon, where you were just like, because you grew up in a traditional family, right? It was not.
I did, but my father was hilarious, and I'm sure his patients got, well, as much for how funny he was and how much he made them laugh as how much medicine he dispensed. I mean, he would line up his appointments for every 20 minutes. And on Saturdays, I would be his receptionist at his office when I was in my high school years. And within an hour, we were already backed up patient-wise because he would entertain them for 45 minutes, making them laugh. And finally, the person that had a 1 o'clock appointment was seeing him at 4:45, and people were waiting till 7 to see him. But they knew when they got him, he was going to do a dog and pony show for them.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was hilarious. When she was a little girl, her father, my very staunch Norwegian grandfather, would punish her for being funny. So I just genetically got it. I mean, people used to ask my mother, was Sally always like this? And my mother, who was so well educated and single-handedly got my father through medical school, she studied with him. She was brilliant, but she would speak English incorrectly to make her point. She would say, well, Sally was born with funny.
So were they supportive?
Very.
At what age did you head to Hollywood?
I came from Oregon, where I was born and raised, Portland, Oregon, to California when I was 18 to go to college at the Pasadena Playhouse College of Theater Arts. And it was a 3-year college, but at the end of my second year, the IRS padlocked it shut. The man that ran it had run it into the ground, and it was in tax arrears, and it was shut, and there was no graduating.
Wow.
So my mother drove down in her sturdy little Ford Falcon station wagon from Portland and picked me up and drove me from Pasadena into Hollywood to the Hollywood Studio Club for Girls run by the YWCA.
Oh my God.
And guess who lived there at that time?
Who?
Norman Lear's daughter, Ellen Lear.
That's crazy.
But that's only in hindsight that the irony is there, because I didn't know that her father was a producer when I lived with her. I didn't know that someday I would be working with him. Mm-hmm. But it's just.
Did success come? Did success come easily? Did you just start you got 5 Easy Pieces with Jack Nicholson? I mean, that's crazy, right? At 20 years old.
Man. What
yeah.
A sweet, kind, dear. I'll tell you how nice he is. You talked to Pamela, right, Cindy?
Mm-hmm.
Pamela's my best friend, and also years later then also became my publicist, but has been my best friend for years. She's my daughter's godmother. They were both born on the same day. One time we were in Tiffany's. I don't shop in fancy places like that. I like going to Marshall's and TJ Maxx. But my hairdresser, who's from Japan, loves all things Tiffany's. His name is Hakudo Itsoda. So Hakudo, for this Christmas, had said he'd always wanted one of those little blue porcelain Tiffany's boxes that you could put jewelry in or whatever you want. Small, but it looks like they're gift boxes. It's that beautiful robin's egg blue with, white ribbon on it.
Yeah.
And so I said, we're going to have to bite the bullet, Pam. We're going to have to go into Tiffany's and buy one of those boxes for Hakudo. So we're in there, and she elbows me, and she says, Sally, Jack Nicholson's over there. You haven't seen him in 10, 15 years. Go over there and say hi. And I said, no, he won't remember me. No, I'm not going. I'm not going to make a fool of myself. She says, go over there. I'm sure he'd love to. I said, stop it. I am not going over there. So I'm winding up paying for the box, and all of a sudden I feel this on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Jack. And he says, hi, Sally. It's Jack. I noticed you over here. It's so good to see ya. Oh my God. Jack. I knew you were here too, but I didn't want to bother you. I walked out of there just flabbergasted. I kept saying to Pam, he knew who I was. She said, Sally, stop it. I said, no, I'm serious. I will forever be Robert and Margaret's daughter from Portland, Oregon. I don't have a Hollywood ego. I am gobsmacked that he remembers me.
You know, 30 million people watch you, Sally. A lot of people remember you.
Well, not so much anymore. Do you know what people say to me now? I mean, you'd think that now I have brown skin, that I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm a guy. I've had a sex change because people will come up to me and they'll say things like, "We didn't know it was you till we heard your voice."
Oh, God. People.
Really, thanks.
So speaking of voice, you do voices, right?
Lots.
Yeah. Tell us about Pebbles and Charlene. Those are the two big ones.
Yes, I'm the voice of Pebbles on Pebbles and Bam Bam for Hanna-Barbera. It's the
Mm-hmm.
cartoon that was created for when Pebbles and Bam Bam became teenagers and went to Bedrock High. And I did that. And you know who was my Bam Bam?
Oh.
There was a TV show on for many years that was quite popular called Dennis the Menace, and a young boy, tow-headed blonde boy, played Dennis the Menace. His name is Jay North. And
Yeah.
Jay North was my Bam Bam.
Oh. Is it fun to do voices?
Oh, it's so easy. It's so because
How does it work? Describe it for
if
people.
you're on camera and you want to be funny, you still have to remember that you're being seen, and you don't want to really look ugly unless the part requires you to do that, which is just fine. But when you're in a sound studio and you can't be seen, you can do anything you want with your face to come up with a voice. You know? So there's a freedom about it. Plus, you don't have to memorize your lines. You don't have to learn blocking. You don't have to learn where to move and what to do. You don't have to have makeup on. You can go to the sound studio in your pajamas and your fuzzy slippers, and they pay you. It's so easy. I love it.
Is it good pay?
It's decent. I mean, it's different doing a cartoon series pay wise, of course, than it is like doing a big major Disney animated film where you would, obviously be paid much better. But
and Dinosaurs, Pam tells me that you still get fan mail for Dinosaurs.
I wish I could walk my phone right now, but we would be in the dark. I'd be out of the light, because I would take you into my downstairs guest bedroom and show you that piled on that bed is so much fan mail that I haven't gotten to yet. And it's all from Dinosaurs coming back on the air. And here's the story about that. That it was like the Honeymooners and All in the Family. That show was about a dinosaur papa and his wife. And their relationship was much like Jackie Gleason and Jane Meadows on Honeymooners. And then they have 3 children. They have a son named Robbie and a daughter named Charlene, and a baby who keeps hitting his father on the head and saying, "Not the mama, not the mama." So they wanted me to go in and read for the wife. Probably age-wise, they were thinking I was in my late 30s at the time, almost 40. And I'm in this room again with all these suits and the people from the Henson Company, because, it was Jim Henson's company that did all of these puppets. We weren't seen on camera. We just did voices. There were human beings in these giant puppet outfits. And then the people with audio animatronic machines across the room. While the actor in the rubber suit was acting, they were making the head on the rubber suit blink and breathe and smile. Smile. So I got in the room and I said, "Can I have just a little bit of a talk with all of you before you have me read the lines?" I said, "I have a 10-year-old daughter, and when I answer the phone at home, people ask if they can speak to my mother. I don't have a real adult sounding voice, so I think you should let me read for the 12-year-old daughter, Anastasia." I mean, yeah. What's her name? Charlene Anastasia Sinclair. Charlene. And they said, "You sure?" Because the wife's the lead dinosaur or female in the show and a bigger role. And I said, "Well, if I got the role of the daughter, would it pay less?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Then let me read for the daughter." That's what I got.
So what is that voice?
I don't know. In acting at college, we had this speech teacher one semester named Jack Woodford, and he said, I think you're going to have trouble working in business, Sally. I said, why, Mr. Woodford? And he said, well, because you have glottic shock. I said, I what? He says, you have glottic shock. You push too much air through your vocal cords at once, and so it makes your voice sound all gravelly. And I want you to practice with a piece of paper that's like a triangle, and you put the point to your mouth. And I want you to go ra da she shu la da she. He said to practice like the same amount of air coming from your lungs, not harder, not softer, a steady flow. You've got to get rid of. I said, did you ever hear of an actress named Tammy Grimes? I said, she's got a gravelly voice. She works all the time. He was really worried about me, but that's what I've got. It came with me. I arrived with a gravelly voice, and
but good for you. I mean, how I'm sure so many people through your career had said you should be this, you should be that, and what comes across to me is someone who's really authentic. You are who you are, and you've stuck through that. Stuck by that, which is probably a big part of your success, right? Not trying to be something you're not.
Yeah, well, right. And it's, when you're only 5 feet tall, it's really hard to try to even attempt to be something I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Because it first of all, it's just people, the world is getting better now in terms of men versus women, slowly with the Me Too movement. But if you're not only a female, but you're a diminutive female, and people can rest their elbow on your head at a cocktail party, and they literally physically have to look down to talk to you, then they kind of think down and talk down.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take you seriously because you're childlike. You're child size. You're not like the gorgeous woman who's a foot taller than you that they're talking to at their own eye level. They're looking down. Oh, did you say something, Sally? Oh, you're so cute, honey. So I don't know. You can't put a lot of airs on when you're 5 feet tall.
Well, I know you have some great Hollywood stories.
Yeah.
So, and I think I heard one about someone named Elvis. Come on, you got to tell us that one. That is amazing. You're blushing.
I have not talked about this publicly. I dated Elvis for a while, and
wait, how old were you?
20.
How old was he?
I don't know.
Was it like at the peak of his stardom?
Oh yeah, huge.
How did this happen?
A friend of mine, a girl named Freddie, introduced me to him, and
was he just super sexy?
Well,
rhetorical question, right?
I could hardly breathe when I was around him. Yeah. His face was so physically beautiful. There was such a magnetism and chiseled but soft, but chiseled the cheekbones. The way his face was made was perfect and manly and pretty and irresistible. And then he had a deep voice and a wild sense of humor. And I put him in the top 5 of my list of people that are kind. Especially people that would have every reason in the world to maybe not think of being kind anymore because they've become so special and so famous, and a lot of people eat that up and turn into nasty SOBs. But
yeah,
he was so thoughtful. And so one night at his house, a girl came in, with two of those crutches that aren't under your arm, but it clamps around your arm, and then you walk that way. And she had two prosthetic legs. And I got alone not that long after she walked in with Elvis in the kitchen. And I said, I called him E. And I said, E, what's the story with the nice gal that arrived a few minutes ago? I said, I feel so badly that she's missing both of her legs. He said, Sally, he said, I met her some time ago, and she's a real nice girl. And I don't imagine that she dates a lot or has a terribly exciting life. And so I make sure that at least every 3 to 4 weeks, I invite her over here for a party so that she has something to feel good about and look forward to. You make sure you talk to her a lot tonight, because she's a real nice gal.
That is so sweet.
I said, how did she lose her legs? And he said, she was driving her Corvette down the Pasadena freeway, Sally, and it fishtailed on her. She lost control, and it hit the center divider, and that Corvettes are built out of fiberglass, and it split in half, and the front half of it went away from her with her legs.
Whoa.
And he just made sure she was at his house all the time for parties, and that she met a lot of people.
And would he sing for you?
No, the first night I met him, everyone else had gone to bed, and it was 3 or 4 in the morning. And he said, he started singing. He was looking into my blue eyes, and he started singing his famous recorded song, Blue Spanish Eyes. And I just kept staring at him. And when he finished singing the song, he was quiet. He was singing it a cappella. And there was 2 seconds of silence, and I looked at him and I said, again. And he sang it again. And when he finished, he said, again. He probably sang it 6 times to me.
And that's it, right? You were a hook, line, and sinker.
And he was also very childlike. He was he had a karate teacher that taught him things that, well, in my world isn't true, but he believed it. One night, it was a little bit windy in Palm Springs. He had me at his house in Palm Springs, and he said, come outside with Miss Sally. I want to show you something. I said, okay. So, outside. Now, he stands next to a plant out in front of the house, a bush, and he takes his hand and he goes, watch this, Sally. And the wind rustles the bush. He says, did you see that? He said, did you see that the power of my hand? And I said, oh, E. I wasn't going to tell him the wind did it.
Yeah, that is just so great. Thank you for sharing that. That just made my whole year. You also have a great Katharine Hepburn story.
Oh God, you've been talking to Pamela.
I did my research.
You have been doing your research, which is why you are a success. And before we finish this interview, I'm going to interview you because I want to ask you about being a life coach. Okay. Who doesn't still love Katharine Hepburn?
I know.
And I went to New York to do my first Broadway show, which the producers of the Tim Conway show, Sam Bobrick and Ron Clark, wrote. It was called Wally's Cafe. It's a 3-character comedy, 3 acts. They cast it with Rita Moreno, Jimmy Coco, and me. And I had made a movie of the week called The Great Houdinis, and Paul Michael Glaser played Harry Houdini. I played his wife, Bess Houdini, and his mother was played by the actress I have always idolized and I had always wanted to meet. And there we were in the movie together, Ruth Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
So we became friends on that movie, and our friendship continued to her death. And I called her up when I got this Broadway show, and I said, I'm coming to New York, Ruth. And she said, oh, well, then you got to stay at my place. She said, Garson and I, talking about her husband, Garson Kane, and Garson and I, we don't live there at the moment, but we have a lovely brownstone on East 43rd Street. It's called Turtle Bay. And we want you to live there and you can stay there. And I said, well, I'm coming with my best friend, my baby girl who's 1, and my 2 dogs. She said, that's just fine. It's got back doors that open on a communal backyard. The dogs can go out. It'll be fine. I said, okay. So I'm living there. And I find out after I moved there that my next door neighbor to the right is Katharine Hepburn. And my next door neighbor to the left is Stephen Sondheim.
Oh my God.
And the Irish woman, Mary, who cleans the Garson and Canaan with Gordon's brownstone, is Irish and is best friends with the Irish woman that cleans for Katharine Hepburn. So my birthday's coming up, and unbeknownst to me, Pamela's been planning a party, and she's inviting everybody from Broadway, and she's told them to bring me some sort of fancy or funny hat that I'm going to, after this party, have a collection of hats. And they have to hide all the food at Katharine Hepburn's, and so Katharine Hepburn's housekeeper has to tell her that all this stuff is for the party, that I'm next door. So the morning of my birthday, Pamela's upstairs trying to teach Samantha, my daughter, to use the potty chair. And on the first floor is a kitchen and a dining area and the doors to the communal backyard. And I'm in the kitchen with the dogs. And I'm in my bathrobe, and someone's knocking on the door, and I'm yelling up the 2 sets of stairways, Pamela, she said, you'll have to get it. I've got Samantha on the potty chair. So I open the front door, and it's Katharine Hepburn. And she said, hello, Miss Sally. My name is Katharine, and I'm your next door neighbor. Mary told me it was your birthday. Happy birthday, dear. I painted a birthday card for you. I hope you have a lovely day. And she hands me a hand-painted card. She painted a card for me.
You must still have that.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's incredible.
And then the next week, she invited Pamela and me over for lunch. And she talked to us about her career, and she took us through her closets, and she showed us all the costumes she kept from all her films. And she talked about Spencer Tracy. It was crazy good. Crazy good.
That's incredible.
Oh, my God.
That must have been surreal.
And how she liked to go swimming in the East River. I mean, Archie Bunker and all the family once said, that East River is so polluted, you dumb Pollock, you could throw a stick in it and it would bounce. But Katharine Hepburn liked to get in that filthy river and freezing cold water and swim.
Unbelievable.
What a woman.
Unbelievable. What experiences you've had. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Can I come back on your show again sometime and tell you some more?
Oh my God. I please. It's unbelievable. It's
now you tell me about what a life coach is.
No, we're not going to talk about me. We still have a couple more. You mentioned your daughter. Yeah. I want to know what it was like. Hold on. I dropped my earbud. Sorry about that. What it was like being a single mother, raising a daughter, and having to work, and any advice for single mothers. She sounds like a terrific girl.
She is. My daughter, Samantha Struthers Rader, Dr. Sam Rader. She's got her PhD in clinical psychology. She could have easily been in the entertainment industry. She and I were on the cover of TV Guide when she was 2. Aww. And she was so fetching that I got a call from Paramount Studios that they wanted to hire her to be in this movie. And I said, no. Mm-hmm. She's 2 years old. No. She went on in elementary school to be the lead in the 6th grade of the musical they put on, and she sang. She's this little Caucasian girl, and she sings like a big person of color. I mean, she's got this voice. She plays the piano, she plays the guitar, she writes music, she recorded her own album, and yet she decided that was her avocation, and what she wanted her vocation to be was in the field of medicine, like her dad and her grandfather, my dad. And she's done very well with it. I'm very proud of her. And now she's writing a book. She just got a deal for a book. She's come up with a whole new method of therapy.
That's awesome. You
and
must be so proud of her.
She's been using some of it on me. And it's not easy because the other half of me is Scottish. My father was a Scotsman, and we are a stubborn group. And to get me to change, or to at least hear that change might be good, is a difficult road to hoe with her. But she's powerful. And
but how did you juggle it? How did you work? Because in those days, you know, daycare was not that acceptable and accessible. And I imagine you were traveling, or you'd be on a film and just working all the time. How do you do that?
She was born after I was finished with All in the Family. And so, you know, there was time to be her mom and time to be there every day. Which was great. But I mean, she was an infant, and then she was 1, and then she was 2, and she went with me to New York along with the dogs and a high chair and a playpen.
So you just make it work.
Well, you make it work. But then, you know, she came from a broken home, but she didn't experience the broken home I experienced. She has no memory of her father ever having lived under the same roof. So there wasn't the pain of losing him because he wasn't there at all in any memory that she had. Whereas my parents broke up when I was 7, and I still carry that pain with me.
Yeah.
But
that's a tough
then
age.
I became an absent mom. Then I went away again to do a tour when Neil Simon rewrote The Odd Couple for 2 women, and Rita Moreno and I were the odd couple. But the investors in the production, even though it was going to open on Broadway, wanted to make sure that they made their money back before we opened on Broadway, in case it only lasted one night and closed, and they didn't want to lose their money. So they made us go on a 9-month tour with it first.
Wow.
And my daughter was 4 at the time, and I begged my mother and my aunt, her baby sister, my Aunt June, my godmother, to come down to California and take care of Samantha and my 4 dogs and my 2 cats. And because I was going to be on the road for 9 months before I could send for Samantha when I arrived in New York. And that was the first time I had to leave her for a long period of time. And I wound up doing that to her many times during her growing up. And it caused problems between us. And I take responsibility for that. I was not present all the time. I was not available all the time. She was an only child. I'm sure it was very hard on her. And we're working through our problems now, but it's fraught with problems, especially in that very touchy relationship, which is always touchy in a perfect world between a mom and a daughter. And I think
so. Any advice for women
when their parent is famous? Because there's one-on-one.
Absolutely.
You're in public. If you're walking down the street with your child,
right,
and you're Betsy, you know, Adams, and your little daughter Susie is with you, people don't keep coming up and interrupting you, so Betsy and Susie can have their day. But whenever I was out in public with Samantha, people were grabbing me and talking to me, and she always had to share me. That couldn't have been easy either. We've had our problems.
And any advice for women who want to be actors and want to have a family? Or
really examine why it is you want to be a performer. Even go to a therapist and get them to get you to talk about it in a way that opens up things you hadn't consciously thought about. If it's not an overwhelming, all-consuming need and desire to be in the arts, enjoy the arts as an adult, but find something else to do as a vocation. It is rough. It is rough, and it's really rough if you want to have children, and then 4 times exponentially rougher if you're in the arts, you have a child, and then your marriage is over. It's too hard on the child. It wasn't easy on me either. When I left to go on that tour for The Odd Couple, and my mom and my aunt were there, the car came in the morning and another car was behind it just to take my luggage, because I was going to be at 9 months, be in every kind of weather in all these different cities. So I needed to pack so many clothes. And Samantha came into the bedroom when I was packing. She was 4, and she said, "Do you have to take everything?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be in all sorts of weather, honey. So I've got to clothes for hot weather and cold weather, clothes for opening nights, clothes for interviews, clothes for rehearsals. I got to take a lot of stuff." She says, "Well, why are you leaving me?" And I said, "Because I can't get a job here. For some reason, the last job I had, which was such a big job, I can't seem to get arrested now. I can't tap dance on the corner for nickels, but I can do theater, and this, I've got to go so I can keep this roof over your head." And she said, "Well, did you try to get a job here?"
No.
I said, I've tried very hard, Sam. No, I'm yesterday's news. Nobody here wants me. I can't. And she said, "Well, did you call everyone?"
Oh, Sally, good God.
It's the next morning, and all the stuff's being loaded in the cars. I'm saying goodbye to the dogs, my mom and my aunt and Samantha. And we've always, when she was little, played this game of who loves the other one the most. And, I would say, I love you. And I love you more. And I'd say, well, I love you more than all of the trees in our yard. And she'd say, well, I love you more than all the leaves on all those trees. So this particular morning, my mom is holding her, and I'm getting in the car, and I'm trying to be brave. And she says from the porch, "I love you, Mom."
Oh,
and I
Sally.
said, "I love you too, Sam, and I love you more because I'm bigger." And she said, "Oh, I love you more because," she said, I've loved you all my life, and you've only loved me part of yours."
Oh, God, you're killing me. You're killing me.
I was gone. I used the entire box of Kleenex in that car for the driver. It was a rough 9 months of being away from her.
Yeah.
But then when we opened in New York and she came to New York, it was just fantastic. She and I had, Hurricane Gloria. Can you imagine Gloria? Hurricane Gloria came through New York at that time, and people were boarded up their stores, and everyone was hiding in their New York apartments. And Samantha and I were out walking in the rain, and the police were coming up and saying, "Lady, get your child inside." I said, "No, we're walking in Hurricane Gloria."
Well, and thank God you had your mom.
Yeah.
That's where you need family. You need family to step in, and so that's great.
Struthers, she was good to go.
Yeah. I'm looking at the clock here, and we only have 6 minutes, but there are lots of comments. First of all, people love your impressions. Okay. Diane says, "I have a hug for you." Oh, you're so real, and you use your experiences to help and educate others. Thank you so much for your honesty and giving us the years and years of enjoyment. You followed your heart and provided your daughter. You're awesome. It's just amazing. You are so loved. Loving this interview. Please come back again. Oh my gosh. It's really great.
If you ever have me back again, will you talk a little bit about being a life coach? Because I think I need one.
Well, you can call me anytime, girl. Oh, wow. My husband and I loved Ruth Gordon. That must have been awesome. Always love you as Babette on the Gilmore Girls. You were so crazy. Would you ever attend a Gilmore fan fest?
I almost did, but then the woman running it made it so difficult for me that I pulled out at the last minute. And my dear, dear, beautiful friend, Rose Abdu, who plays Gypsy, the town auto mechanic on Gilmore Girls, she so much wanted me to be there too. We had all these plans on what we were going to do for the fans and everything. Rose, you ought to interview Rose Abdu sometime. She's a
Yeah.
fascinating woman, young woman. But then the woman that ran it was just, she made it so difficult. I didn't go, but the answer to that is yes, I would go. I would
Okay.
absolutely go. Yeah. And the town that it takes place in, and they've had 3 of them now, is in Connecticut. And the Gilmore Girls show on the back lot of Warner Brothers in Los Angeles was fashioned to look like Stars Hollow looks like this real town in Connecticut that it was
Wow.
made to look like.
Wow.
Yeah.
That just actually reminded me, I wanted to ask you about Maine. Will you be in Maine this summer?
I would be, because I've worked there every year.
Yeah.
Great for 18 years, sometimes twice a year, but I don't know if the theater will be open with all these variants happening with the virus. I don't know if it'll be safe yet in the summer to open the theater. And now it's not even a summer theater anymore. It opens the end of April and stays open till the beginning of November. It's almost year round. The only reason it's not a year round theater, the Ogunquit Playhouse, is because it doesn't have heating. It's 90 years old, the theater. When it was built, it was only built for summer shows, so there's no heat.
Wow. Wow.
But I will definitely be there the minute that they are doing shows again, but I don't know if it'll be this summer.
So before we go, how are you doing with the whole pandemic? What has there been any silver lining for you?
Yes. The silver lining for me is that I am 73 and a half years old, and I've worked my whole life, and I've worked very hard, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. But the older I've gotten, the more tired I've become. And I just kept going because I love it. And I don't have anybody else to share my bills with. I'm not married. I don't have a boyfriend. I'm the breadwinner. That's it for my life. So, but this pandemic shutting show business down, literally, film, television, theater, forced me to stay home in a house that I've owned 22 years. And this year was the first year that I had Christmas in my house. I've never even spent Christmas in my own home until this year. So, the blessing was, this was the last year of my dog, little Brad Kenny's life. Brad Kenny is the artistic director of the Ogunquit Playhouse, and he took me to find a new dog when my 2 Scotties passed away. And we found this one dog that hadn't been adopted, and I took him, and I said to Brad, the man, can I name him after you? And he just passed away 5 days ago. And I've had to leave him a lot. I took him with me when he was younger, my little dog, but then traveling was difficult with him because he was older, and I wouldn't have spent 15 solid months every single day with him if it hadn't been a pandemic. So
that's a gift.
That was a huge gift to him and to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sally, this has been so much fun. I mean, wish you could see the chat, just all the love people are sending you and how much they admire you. And it's just so great to meet you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Cindy. I think you're doing a real service here. I love any show that's produced by women, anchored by a woman, for women. There hasn't been enough of that in my life, and I'm so proud of you for doing this.
No, thank you. I hope you'll come back.
Please invite me.
Yes. All right. Be well, my dear.
Okay. I will. I promise. I'm going to be very well.